The dawn was just breaking over the horizon as the fishing boat The Mariner left the dock, its crew ready for another day at sea. The team, composed of veteran fishermen John, Mike, Tony, and the new guy Sam, had high hopes for a bountiful catch. The sea was unusually calm as they ventured further from the shore, the only sound being the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull. The sky was overcast, casting a gray pallor over the water, but the men were undeterred. They had faced worse conditions. John, the grizzled captain, kept a steady hand on the wheel, guiding the boat to their usual fishing spot. Mike, his burly first mate, prepared the nets, while Tony, the jovial prankster, checked the equipment. Sam, the quiet observer, took in his surroundings, noting the eerie silence that seemed to envelop them. As they reached their destination, the crew set to work, casting their nets and waiting for the first signs of a catch. Hours passed with little activity. The sea, usually teeming with life, was oddly still. John frowned, a sense of unease settling over him. He glanced at the sonar screen and saw nothing but a blank expanse. The silence was suddenly broken by a loud thud from below the boat. The men exchanged worried glances, each silently questioning the source of the noise. John motioned for them to stay calm and continued to scan the water, hoping for a sign of fish. Another thud, this time more pronounced, echoed through the hull. The boat rocked slightly, and the water around them began to bubble. A foul stench, like rotting fish, filled the air. Tony gagged, covering his nose with his sleeve. Sam's eyes widened in fear as he pointed to the water. A dark shape was rising from the depths, slowly taking form beneath the surface. The creature, massive and otherworldly, emerged with a slow, deliberate motion. Its scales glistened with a sickly green hue, and its eyes glowed with an unsettling, intelligent light. The crew stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. The creature circled the boat, its gaze fixed on the men. John, mustering all his courage, reached for the radio to call for help, but the device crackled and went dead. The creature let out a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the boat, causing the men to stumble. Mike, ever the pragmatist, grabbed a harpoon, his face set in grim determination. John stopped him with a sharp shake of his head, understanding that aggression could provoke the creature. The creature seemed to understand, its growl softening to a curious rumble. As minutes stretched into an eternity, the creature slowly sank back into the depths, leaving a whirlpool in its wake. The water calmed, and the oppressive silence returned. The men, still shaken, hastily pulled in their nets and prepared to head back to shore. The journey back was tense, each man lost in his thoughts, replaying the encounter in his mind. When they finally docked, they disembarked in silence, the weight of what they had witnessed hanging heavy in the air. The townsfolk noticed their pale faces and hushed whispers, but the crew offered no explanations. They knew that the story would be met with skepticism and disbelief. Instead, they made a silent pact to keep the experience among themselves, a shared secret that bonded them in a way nothing else could. That night, as they each lay in their beds, the image of the creature haunted their dreams. The once familiar sea now held a new, terrifying mystery, a reminder that some things are better left unexplored. The sun hung low in the sky as three middle-aged men, Jack, Henry, and Paul, set out on their small fishing boat, the Wanderer. The waters of the bayou were calm, and the dense marshland on either side whispered with the rustling of unseen creatures. The men had been fishing in these waters for years, finding solace and camaraderie in their shared hobby. Jack, the eldest and most experienced, steered the boat with a practiced hand, guiding it through the narrow waterways. Henry, stocky and strong, readied the fishing gear, his movements confident and efficient. Paul, the quiet thinker of the group, organized the bait and supplies, his eyes scanning the water for any sign of a catch. As they reached a favored fishing spot, they anchored the boat and cast their lines. The air was thick with humidity, and the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface added to the tranquility of the setting. Hours passed in peaceful silence, broken only by the call of distant birds and the hum of insects. Suddenly, the stillness was shattered by a violent splash near the boat. Paul, closest to the edge, leaned over to investigate, his curiosity piqued. Before he could react, a massive alligator lunged out of the water, its powerful jaws clamping down on his leg. The force of the attack knocked Paul off balance, and he fell into the water with a cry of pain. Jack and Henry sprang into action, their faces etched with horror. Jack grabbed a long pole used for pushing the boat, trying to fend off the alligator as it thrashed in the water, dragging Paul further from the boat. Henry, thinking quickly, reached for the first aid kit and a rope, knowing they needed to act fast to save their friend. The water churned with a mix of blood and mud as Paul struggled against the alligator's grip. His shouts were a mix of pain and desperation, echoing through the bayou. Jack managed to jab the alligator's snout with the pole, momentarily startling it and causing it to loosen its grip on Paul's leg. Taking advantage of the moment, Henry tossed the rope to Paul, who grabbed it with trembling hands. With all their strength, Jack and Henry pulled Paul back towards the boat, the alligator snapping at his heels, but retreating as they dragged him out of the water. They heaved Paul onto the deck, his leg a bloody mess of torn flesh and shredded clothing. Henry quickly applied a tourniquet to slow the bleeding while Jack radioed for help, his voice shaking but determined. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited for rescue, the oppressive heat of the bayou pressing down on them. Jack kept a wary eye on the water, half expecting the alligator to return, while Henry stayed by Paul's side, offering words of comfort and reassurance. Paul, pale and in shock, clung to consciousness, his breath shallow and rapid. Eventually, the sound of an approaching boat broke the tense silence. The rescue team arrived, their professional efficiency a stark contrast to the chaos of the attack. They stabilized Paul and swiftly transported him to a nearby hospital, leaving Jack and Henry to follow in their own boat. As they made their way back, the reality of the day's events began to sink in. The bayou, once a place of relaxation and friendship, now held a menacing air. Jack and Henry exchanged a somber glance, unspoken words passing between them. They knew they would return to the water someday, but the memory of the alligator's attack would haunt them, a constant reminder of the lurking dangers beneath the surface. The sun dipped below the horizon as they reached the dock, casting long shadows over the marshland. The two men disembarked in silence, their thoughts with Paul and the uncertain road to recovery that lay ahead. The bayou's whispers seemed louder now, echoing the primal fear that had been awakened within them. If you liked the video, you can support the continuation of such videos by liking and subscribing to the Mysterious Shadows YouTube channel. See you.